story which is about one of our school values, Mr. Uppity. As you know, he's quite rude, and we can't be rude in school, so here I go. This is the story of Mr. Uppity, and how Mr. Uppity finishes the story is not quite uppity as the beginning of the story. You see, Mr. Uppity was one of the rudest people in the world. If not rudest, he was rude to anybody and everybody. So of course in Big Town, where he lived, he had no friends at all, not one. Miserable old Uppity, they used to call him. And he certainly looked it. As well as being rude, Mr. Uppity was also rich, very rich, one of the richest people in the world, if not richest. He had the largest, longest limestone in Big Town. He had the largest, longest garden in Big Town. At the top of his hill, at the middle of Big Town, the most enormous house, the biggest house in Big Town, and that he lived all around, miserable old Mr. Uppity. And you see all those windows, that's where he lived. One day, Mr. Uppity was walking in his garden, and one of his enormous house suddenly heard a voice, a little voice. "Hello," said the voice. Mr. Uppity looked. There, one of his hundreds of flower beds, there was a goblin. Aren't you gonna say hello to me?" asked the goblin. "Go away," said Mr. Uppity rudely. "Oh, I know who you must be," said the goblin. "You must be Mr. Uppity, who's rude to everybody." Sniffed Mr. Uppity rudely. "Well, I know somebody who wants to meet you," said the goblin, and skipped off the way goblins do. "Come on," he said over his shoulder. Mr. Uppity got a curiosity got the better of him. That means he's very curious. In there, a goblin pointing at a small hole in the tree. "Don't be silly," snorted Mr. Uppity. "I'm not being silly," said the goblin. "Yes, you are," said Mr. Uppity. "I can't possibly get in there." Smiled the goblin. Then he said a magic word which only goblins knew, which sounded like wobbly gobbly gook or something like that. Suddenly, Mr. Uppity started shrinking. He shrank until he was exactly the same size as the goblin. "Turn me back to my proper size," sputtered Mr. Uppity in a rage. "No," grinned the goblin. And so saying, the goblin climbed through the hole in the tree. Mr. Uppity didn't know what to do, so he followed him. Inside the tree was a staircase going down and down and down. And do you know where it led to? It led directly to the kingdom of goblins. And that's where I demanded to be taken to immediately. Who's in charge?" said Mr. Uppity angrily. "Oh, you shall," grinned the goblin. And he led Mr. Uppity to the streets of the kingdom of goblins until they came to a place. "Halt! Who goes there?" cried the goblin at the great. "I brought Mr. Uppity," said the goblin. "Oh," the certainly said and smiled. The goblin and Mr. Uppity passed through the grates into the courtyard and through some more gates, along a long corridor, some large gold doors into a huge room. There, sitting on a gold throne, was the king of goblins. "Your Majesty," announced the goblins, bowing low. "May I present Mr. Uppity?" Said the king. "So you're the fellow who goes about being rude to everybody and doesn't have any friends." "Nonsense," said Mr. Uppity rudely. "I can see what I've heard is true," said the king. "You're looking for entertainment, Mr. Uppity. You're much too puffed with your own importance. He thinks too much about himself." Therefore, he continued, "I'm going to allow you to be turned back to your proper size, but when you get back to Big Town, if you're rude to anybody at all, you'll shrink to the size you are now. Do you understand?" The goblin took Mr. Uppity back to the kingdom of goblins the staircase and out of the tree at the bottom of Mr. Uppy's garden. The goblin looked at Mr. Uppy and said something which sounded like probably a doll. Something which is probably wobbly gobbly gook said backwards. Mr. Uppy grew back to his original size. Now you remember what the king said, warned the goblin. Don't be so uppity in future. Mr. Uppy marched off his enormous house. The following day, he was walking through the streets of Big Town. Suddenly, he came across a little boy playing a ball. Get out of the... I may, snapped Mr. Uppy rudely. But as soon as he said it, you know what happened, don't you? Yes! Mr. Uppy shrank and shrank till he was no bigger than the ball the boy was playing with. Oh dear, he gasped. Then he thought, I'm sorry, he said to the boy. What I meant to say, please could I get past? Immediately, Mr. Uppy grew to his original size and the boy moved. Mr. Uppy sent on his way. He met an old lady carrying a large shopping basket. She was late for the market. Excuse me, she said to Mr. Uppy. Can you tell me the time, please? No, snapped Mr. Uppy rudely, but as soon as he said it, you know what happened. Yes, he shrank and shrank. He could easily have put it into the old lady's basket. Oh dear, he gasped. Then he thought, I'm sorry, he said to the old lady. What I meant to say was, it's 11:25. Immediately, Mr. Uppy grew to his original size. The old lady thanked him. Mr. Uppy went on his way. Then he went and bought a newspaper from a man standing in the corner of the main street in Big Town. He was about to walk away when he suddenly stopped in the door and turned back to the man and said, Thank you. Thank you were the two words Mr. Uppy had never used before. The man smiled. The smile was something Mr. Uppy wasn't used to getting. Then Mr. Uppy stopped by a man who asked him if he could tell the way to the end. Mr. Uppy was about to say no when he thought yes, and he told the man. Thank you, said the man. Thank you were the two words not done Mr. Uppy had never used before, but had never said to him before. Mr. Uppy felt happy. He was feeling Mr. Uppy. He wasn't used to feeling like it, and he liked it. You know what? From that time forward, this day backwards, Mr. Uppy is a changed person. He's still the richest person in Big Town, perhaps the richest person in the world, but now he has lots of friends, and he smiles a lot, and he never gets that shrinking feeling. And you know which words Mr. Uppy uses most of these days? Please and thank you. Which is what we'd like to say is thank you for reading this story. And if you're ever thinking about being rude to somebody, please keep a sharp lookout for goblins. Bye.